Arglwydd dyma fi ar dy alwad di. Lord, here I am at your call. These can be very dangerous words to say because God will take you at your word and use you. So do not take it lightly, because sometimes we don't really know what we're saying. When we ask God for revival, are we asking for how it was over a century ago, or are we wanting the new thing that He has planned for us? Do we really want to see God's will be fulfilled, or are we just looking for our preference? Before the Israelites could possess the land that had been promised to them, they had to be willing to leave their pasts behind. Even Moses, the one who led them out of slavery, could not leave the wilderness. The Lord appointed Joshua, someone new, to lead them across the River Jordan. My question is, are we willing to leave behind our old thought patterns and behaviours in order to fully experience and be a part of what God has for the Welsh Church now? Will you accept the Lord's invitation to step out of the wilderness and into the promised land? When the Israelites had finally made it to a land that they could call their own, there was no need for them to wander anymore. They could establish their homes and ensure that for generations to come, there would be a place that they could call their own. The Tabernacle of Moses was moved to Shiloh and stayed there for over 300 years. When David was king, he erected a tent and placed the Ark of the Covenant in it. For 33 years, there was non-stop worship. But it was his son, King Solomon, who took the pattern and elements of both tents and established something more permanent in Israel, the temple. Can we, the Welsh Church, learn something from this? We've discussed the importance and necessity of tents during the wilderness season, but is having something more established required for the next season?
When we don't understand the purpose of what God does in the past, and we don't learn the lessons for it, we will remain there and keep doing the same thing over and over again. We will then forget why we do things the way we do. Instant. Moses does the tabernacle. Kind of does all he needs to do. David comes along and says, well, it'd be great if everybody could have access to, the worship of the priests then, or all the priests together.
Yeah.
So he brings the Ark of the Covenant to the city, and he establishes the Tabernacle of David, which is essentially the Tabernacle of Moses, just the compartment of the holy place. And then Solomon comes along and says, no, now it needs to be established. This needs to be something that's accessible to all people, but it needs to be an established place. And that's when we kind of see the ecclesia thing rising up. If you have a look at what we do now, the church buildings, everyone says, oh, church buildings, nothing. No, it's the established place of God. It's the place that everybody recognises. That's a church.
Yeah.
Oh, I need help. I'll go to the church.
Yeah.
Or something's happened. I'll go to the church. That's what essentially an established place is. But because we've forgotten why God establishes somewhere, or establishes a building, a set apart place, an altar, if you like, we revert back to what went before. Mm-hmm. Let's put a tent up. Yeah. Let's have church in a tent. Oh, we don't need church buildings. Let's do away with them. Yeah. Oh, we don't need no church at all. Yeah. Where do we stop? It undoes everything. Yeah. But it's all because they forgot the purpose of what God did. The purpose of the Tabernacle of Moses was to take us through a pattern of life. Yeah. It was basic principles, if you will, that we still live by today. Nobody studies those things. But those are the basic principles of, warfare, prayer, worship, all in the Tabernacle of Moses. Yeah. It doesn't mean that we have to set up a tent every week to do those things. No. It's principle-based. David comes along, brings the creatives into it. Music now is in the worship. So the worship back in Moses' tabernacle was literally incense drunk together, raise it up and smoke goes before the Lord. Now music, melody and all this stuff, you know, the creativity of what David did in the fields is now brought into the tabernacle. Great, so it's another aspect God was bringing into the principles of life. Music, which we do. You know, people put music on the car, start worshipping. It's like, you know, it's an everyday thing, not just a Sunday thing. But it's got to move on from there. It can't just stay there. Solomon comes along and goes, do you know what? We can do all of that in one place. Because not forgetting, David had his tabernacle set up, but the Moses tabernacle was still up on a mountain. And they were adhering to the same, you know, kind of services and stuff that they needed to. But Solomon understood that all of this can function in one place and could be recognised by the people as a place for the worship of God. So that's what he does. And it's been established ever since. The church wasn't birthed on Pentecost. It was birthed right back in Solomon's day. Right? And I think, but the church has forgotten. And this is why I love tent missions, don't get me wrong. They're great. Our church started out as a tent mission. Right? So mission hall, Frank couldn't afford a building, put a tent up instead. So they've been a means, but they're not a means to establish. And I think this is things, got to move on from there, you know.
It really, you know, is that place where God really wants to establish himself in a place. I honestly believe that. And so we can get to the point where we can be wandering about in rented halls or just in people's living rooms and all that stuff going on, or in tents. The church that we're in, Seth and Frank Joshua's church, they started off in a tent. But that wasn't satisfactory. That was only a temporary move. They had to establish something because they built the fine building that's there now. But it's a footprint on the ground. And this is the thing, is that when Joshua, you know, Joshua takes over now because Moses couldn't go in. He was part of that generation. He had to die the other side of the, you know, in the other side of the Jordan. But when Joshua went in, he was given a word from the Lord. Everywhere you put your foot, I'll give it to you. And the crazy thing is this, is that the place where they crossed over Jordan and they ended up, there's a big mark on the ground, big footprint on the ground. It was, they reckon, they don't know what it was, a pagan temple or something like that. So, and it's huge. I mean, it's enormous. In fact, they put the tabernacle inside the heel of that foot. That's how big it was when they went in. And so it was that picture, if you like, this something was transitioning. You were going from wandering, from temporary, right, lifting up, you were going into something now that you're going to put an imprint upon the ground. Now, for me, that's what I believe these buildings are. You know, a lot of people think, well, and there's been, you know, a lot of religiousness within the buildings. They stand for things, and if you like, it's some people want to try to get away from, and probably should get away from. However, they were a footprint on the ground. And in many places, they still exist. You know, some of them are closed down now. Some of them are turned into, you know, antique shops and or storerooms. But they're a footprint upon the ground. And I think that's our mentality, is that you've got to go from something that's wandering. You've got to go from, at some point, God wants you to go and say, possess the land. We were in a situation quite a few years ago where we were just using halls, hired halls, and we were told to leave because there'd been a change of policy inside the council, and we were told, we don't want this type of thing going on in our halls anymore. We don't want any of these meetings going on, church meetings, and we had to go. And because we didn't have a footprint upon the ground, we were at the, you know, we just had to leave. Right? God had a plan in mind, because as that door shut, the door to the mission hall that we're in now opened up, and we found out it's Seth Joshua's church. So we transitioned from that thing of wandering, having no place of our own, to all of a sudden being in this place that had been a footprint in Neath for the best part of 100 years, and had all its heritage to it. So I don't know if that explains it well enough, but I think by trying to pull away from these old buildings, fine, let's build new buildings. You know what I mean? If you've got problems with the old buildings, well, let's build a new building, but let's have a building, let's have something established. You know,
there needs to be something that is established within, you know, the towns, the villages, so that everybody can come to and
that's what I believe
experience.
anyway. I believe it's these. You're a city on a hill. right? A light, a lamp, but sometimes people don't know what's there, do they? If you're just meeting in your own little huddles in people's living rooms and that, and I'm not decrying that, that's great.
Yeah.
In fact, Church on the Move, this is where it started from, in this living room. When I came back from Africa, the first meeting we had was 20, 30 people in this small living room here.
Yeah.
So we started from here, and for many years, that's what we did. We did the Bible, I was doing the Bible class from here. We were using our halls for Sunday meetings. I've done all that. I've been there.
Yeah.
But at some point, I believe as a point that crosses over, that God says, look, I want to take you from that which is transient, from temporary. And there may be seasons where God will take you from something permanent into something transient. It's very fluid. However, I think God always wants to transition you into something that is here. Yeah. And we're here to stay. A lot of people criticize the Anglican churches. But some of those old churches, those cathedrals in it, and that's to the glory of man and all that. Hang on, back up a bit, right? Yeah. Read the history on them a bit. Because most of them are made to the glory of God. In fact, all of them are probably made to the glory of God. People brought their crafts there. Some people spent a lifetime on it. From generation to generation, building something to the glory of God. Now, challenge out to the Pentecostal churches or some of the new churches today. Maybe when you've had your doors open for over 1,000 years as a place of worship, we may have something to say. Right? But when you consider sometimes how transient our type of movements can be, how fickle, right? We can open up a building, get a building going, and the next minute you see it shut up. Whereas you look at some of these older places sometimes, and it's not been about the individuals that have been there. It's been the fact is it's a footprint on the ground and a place for God's people to worship. So if you want to know about the town and the history, go to the cathedral, go to the church. And you're literally walking on sort of slabs sitting in pews maybe, that generations have walked on, that have followed the Lord. It hasn't been about the individuals, it's been about the footprint, about God's glory in a place. Yeah. That's very important. It can be a bit sort of personality driven sometimes, the way we do things today, instead of footprint. We've got to, and from generation to generation, and it's not about it's about passing it on to the next,
Yeah. Wales is known as the land of my fathers, but what does that mean? Well, it means that a family, a home has had to have been established for generations within a specific location. There's an old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Historically in the UK, to be classified as a village, there needed to have been a place of worship and a central meeting point. There are almost 4,000 towns and villages in Wales, which means at one point there would have needed to have been the same number of churches. But nowadays, church buildings stand empty or have been turned into residential buildings. In some ways, the sense of community has been taken away because the central meeting point of these communities is no longer. Community is of utmost importance, and we need to get back to being an established congregation. Being with the people, experiencing the highs and lows of life with one another, supporting your friends and neighbours. So how do we do this, and what does it look like?
A church can only be established when you've got people who meet within it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just pointless, just a building. Right?
Yeah.
So for a church to be established, you have the people and the building.
Yeah.
And then you've got purpose. Mm-hmm. Right? But if you've got one or the other, you're not established.
No. Just like a load of people wandering around in an empty building.
Right. And what good does either of them do? Nothing. This is why, people study Celtic Christianity. It was the established church coming to Wales.
Yeah.
And in these places, St. Ilfryd was a saint, and he established a church, and he'd preach on scripture and everything like that. But he'd also teach on science, maths, and all that kind of stuff. If anybody was in poverty and needed fed, he'd feed them in the church. It became the hub of the community, right? This is what establishing means. It doesn't mean I build a building that I call it a church, put some fancy windows in it, of Bible stories, and then people can sing hymns and not speak to each other and leave. That's not the established church.
No.
The established church is when you get a people doing the purpose of God in a building.
How do we go about in teaching people to make a home and build a place of worship
again because these churches are still there. That's the thing.
Yeah.
The churches are empty.
Yeah.
But they're still there. So
they're run by eldership boards that won't allow anything new.
Yeah.
Right? By denominations that want it the same as the old day.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of church plants. We know of a lot of church plants happening. A lot of them are meeting in pubs and, community buildings and all this type of stuff, which is essentially how we started Church and Move. But you can't remain that way.
No.
So you can be a temporary dwelling, but you can't live as a temporary dwelling. No. It's got to become established. So I think plant a church. Right? If your village ain't got a church, plant one.
Yeah.
Simple. Plant one. Right? Do it in a temporary dwelling. And then let the Lord lead you to the establishment. See, we weren't in the mission hall up until 14 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was literally, we were checked out of our council building and our offices overnight. Right? On the same day. Right? Yeah. And then Dad had a phone call from a guy called Gareth and said, listen, the mission hall, you could use that place. 14 years later, we still there. Right? The Lord will provide.
Yeah.
You just got to set something up. So the beginnings of things are always temporary.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why you found Moses and David. Yeah. Temporary. But it'll always lead you to something established.
Well, absolutely. David bought a plot of land.
Yes.
On Moriah.
Right.
For Solomon to build a temple.
Yes.
So it's about, I guess, building upon what has been before.
Totally.
Rather than maybe replicating it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the future for Wales.
Absolutely. And, just say some of these buildings are not fit for purpose.
No.
Right? They're not recognised as places or hubs of the community, places of worship anymore. No. They're seen as properties to renovate into flats or whatever. Because people see as time gone by.
Yeah.
No relevance today. They're full of pews. It's of its time.
Yeah.
Right? So I think at some point you've got to just get rid of them.
Yeah.
If they've done no relevance, don't use them. Knock them down. Yeah. Right? I'm not precious over buildings. Right? I've done no problem with that. I'm on about when people meet in these buildings. Find a building that is fit for purpose.
Yeah.
Or build something.
Yeah.
Build one. Name it. Get a community in.
Yeah.
And I never forget the first Sunday that I had Church and Move. And I used to be in a band, and we used to pack the equipment in the back of the cars, and we'd travel and do gospel message, gospel services, gospel worship, and all that. And I said I'd never do it again. Right? When I left that and did that stuff, that was a season of my life. Did it for a long time actually. But getting older now, didn't want to be lifting speakers and ruining cars. I don't know how many cars I wrecked in that whole thing. But on that first Sunday, of course we'd hired a hall. We went on all the hired halls around Neath. God said I want you to do that. Go to all the places around Neath, and in at least 3 places now, there's churches that have set up where we went, which I find astounding. But God told us to go around there and just to worship, and I kept all the stuff, the speakers, the stands, all down a shed that I got down the bottom of the garden. And on that first Sunday, I was loading them up into the back of the car, and I had a little chuckle to myself because I said, God, how did you do this? You just pulled a flanker on me, but that's something I said I'd never do, and I'm doing it. And so we sort of, we did all that sort of wandering. But so for me, it was a season that there was a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of logistics to get things to places. So it's great then when you've got your own place, because you can set up now and you can do all types of doors begin to open up for you now. Easter events, Christmas events, events, just stuff, you know what I mean? Because you've got a place. And by the way, we don't own our building. We're just there at the moment.
Yeah.
We squat in, we are. I think it's a squatter's rights. I don't know what it is, but we are sharing it obviously with a small congregation that is there. But it's not just about the building. It's about the inheritance that building represents. It's about the heritage that has come down from the Joshua brothers, from those revivalists. So it's not just a building. It's not just a footprint. It's what's the story with that?
Yeah.
Where's the mantle there, ready to be picked up again?
Yeah.
So just a simple thing. We were there not that long, in that building, found out that there was a large choir there, over 100 strong singers. They reckon the sound that they had on a Sunday when they sang on it, you could hear it across the town, the sound of joy, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, Faith, my daughter, you know, she was there. Joy, she've always wanted a choir. I've always wanted a choir. And I said, well, just do it then. Yeah. What are you going to call it? We're going to call it the Joshua Voice Choir in honour of the fella that did this first. Now, all that happened was that she picked up a mantle that had been left there.
Yeah.
Do you understand? There's something there of an inheritance. I just pick it up from where. So I'm going to take off where they left off. I picked it up, and it's probably one of the most successful things that we do. You know, we can get hundreds of people showing up to these events. Yeah. We've had people saved that have joined the choir, not Christian, not even coming to church, but they want to sing. They sing in the songs. It's going into their spirit probably. Yeah. And next minute they're giving their lives to the Lord. So it's had many changes over the years, but it's that sort of consistency, but it's that picking up of a mantle. So,
yeah. But if you're going to be a leader, or you're going to establish anything, you first need to be established. You're going to have to carry this thing until the good Lord tells you no longer is it yours. So I can count on my one hand how many services I've actually missed. We book holidays in the week so we can get back on a Sunday. Right? And sometimes you're abroad. It's impossible. Right? But I'm on about is the essence of, within all my power, I'm going to make sure that the established me establishes something at the established place. Right? And then people turn around and go, anything you do, it always seems to be successful. I'm established. And I know where to go that is established. Yeah. And therefore anything that I do will be established. Yeah. Right? This is what pursuing God is. This isn't about putting God first, by the way. Everyone says, well, put God first on a Sunday. No, God comes first every day. Yeah. Right? And I'll be cooking or whatever, cleaning, whatever. God's still first. Just as I'm doing something else doesn't mean God's not first. No. Right? That's just ridiculous. But what I'm doing is I'm setting apart time to gather myself with other Christians of like-minded nature to worship first, to learn, and to be together. Yeah. Friendship. Family. See, if you were born into a family and you don't go there regularly to eat and commune with your family and talk to them, you will be distant from them. Yeah. To maintain relationship, you have to go to your place of birth with your parents, sit down and talk. Yeah. I know people don't want to do this anymore. No. Right? They don't want to go over each other's houses. They don't want to have friends over and all this type of stuff. And my door is like a revolving door here. My next door neighbours, they come in and make a cup of coffee and I don't even know they're in my house. Because I want my house to be established as a place of friendship. Yeah. Not just for my family. There's times when my doors are closed and it's just my family. Yeah. Right? But there's times where it's come in. Right? Yeah. But the church is open all the time. Anybody. Yeah. Everybody needs to be established that way.
Over the last few episodes, I've had conversations with those who have been inspired and affected by the revivals of old, who wanted to make a difference in their communities and the country of Wales as a whole. They have been willing to give their lives to tell people about Jesus, no matter the sacrifices they've had to make. The wilderness has been a learning season. We've needed to discover how to depend on the Lord when everything seemed disappointing. But now we're at the point of no return. God is inviting us to step into his promises as individuals, families, churches, and as the people of Wales. He wants to move again in this nation. So as we look forward, what is in Wales's future?
For Wales to understand her identity as a son, understanding that identity is necessary. We're not trying to gain his approval, we have it. We're not trying to gain a place as a son, he's given it to us. So we can fight a fight, not trying to get there, but to live from there. Wales isn't lesser.
So I really believe that God's hand is still on Wales. And I believe that he's awakening us, the church. And as he awakens us, the church, we'll become in that fullness of what God has for us. I believe that God loves this country. Oh gosh, Wales has a great future because Jesus has never, ever left us.
There's something different coming. Now, what that difference is, I say, you're not going to presume. I'm not going to think it's going to be like this, it's going to be like that. All I know is Wales is this crazy, special little land with a bunch of people that are, they're crazy people, man, right? They're crazy people. But however, in this land, God did something amazing in 1904. And prior to that, there was loads of, in fact, this is the longest period of time Wales has been without a revival. So now, is he keeping the best to last? I think so. But what's it going to look like? I don't know. I know this one thing, is when it comes, I'll recognise it.
What's in Wales' future? We've done no reference for it. And I think that this is where, you know, the journey of Moses kind of crosses over with Wales quite a bit, is that Moses had no reference for the wilderness or the promised land.
Yeah.
It's just a land flowing with milk and honey. How, what's that even look like?
Yeah.
I don't know. All I can do is 24 hours at a time encourage people. If they're unsaved, call on the name of Jesus, you will be saved. For those who are already saved but nomads, get into a family. You'll be safer. You'll have discipline, which we all need, correction, which is a must, but you'll be loved. Mm-hmm. You've got to be loved. Yeah. You've got to be loved. And for those who are in established churches, what are you doing? Don't just be, do.
Yeah.
And then whatever God does with that, it'll thrive. I don't know what that looks like. I've never lived it. My town ain't fully thriving. The church has started to thrive, great. But I've not seen the fullness of what it is. Yeah. For a whole town, I don't know what it even looks like. I can dream it though. Mm. I think God can do a lot with the dream. Yeah. What's in Wales' future? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just know what I gotta do. And my part in it. Which is what I'm doing now. I don't think that'll ever change.
No.
It won't change.
The Welsh people are a musical people, they're a poetic people, they're a excitable people, and you need more of that kind of power, that Welsh oomph. And I believe Wales is one of the gems that God has. And he's not done. He's not done.
I've learned so much as I've explored what God has been doing in Wales, and on a personal note, what he has been doing in me. You see, I had been wandering in the wilderness myself, but now I've made the choice to cross over into his plans and purposes for me. I don't want to keep on looking back on what was. I want to live in the now. I don't know what revival will be like if it came to Wales right at this moment, but let me ask you a question. What if it all starts by going to church and becoming a part of that family? Serving and loving each other and the Lord well, keeping our eyes firmly fixed on Jesus. If each community took care of its own people, what kind of impact would we see? Wales, the land of my fathers, which is so dear to me. You have been wandering around the wilderness for so long, living on that bread of heaven. But the time for that has ended. Are you willing to accept the Lord's invitation to step into the promised land?